Hello, everybody. This is Ian Hancock, and for the next 30 minutes, I will try to tell you about Romani peoples in the Americas. It's not widely known that the population, the world Romani population, between a third and a quarter of the entire world population of Romani people live in North and South and Central America. And so I want to tell you as much as I could get into 30 minutes about who the people are and why they cross the Atlantic and what are some of the characteristics. I will start, however, by saying that I will refer to our people as Romanis, not as Roma. I think this is not respectful to the very many Romani groups that do not refer to themselves as Roma, but as Sinti, Ramnichals, and Kale, and so on. And it strikes me as a convenience for non-Romani scholars to group us all under one heading. So I will be referring to the different subgroups, sometimes referred to as different endaya, as Romani groups. If we look at the dates involved, we have to go all the way back to the late 1400s. The first Romani presence in the Americas was in 1498 when three were being transported, supposedly for murder, from Spain with Christopher Columbus. And they were left on the island of Hispaniola. We have no idea what happened to them, but that was not an isolated case, because when we move into the period of the Inquisition, there were many more transports of Romanis to the European colonies in the Americas. So I will go country by country and just highlight the main dates and circumstances of those transportations. And I'm using this book, Miromski Narod, which is in Slovak, I believe. It's a translation of the English language original called the My Romani, We Are the Romani People. And it has a summary of the period of slavery, but I'll give you more detail here. It's interesting that looking at North America, where I live now, even as late as 1874, it was publicly believed that there were no Romani people in North America. And there were several quotes. That one was actually in an American encyclopedia. A very strange comment to be made, given the large number of Romanis who do live here. In 1661, an act of parliament in Britain was passed with the intent of arresting gypsies, and I'll use that word because that was the word used, to be shipped off to the plantations in Virginia, Jamaica, and Barbados. And they were there, the wording says they had to undergo a perpetual servitude. Another reference from 1665 comments on the Scottish government and the English government sending gypsies to Jamaica and Barbados. In 1714, British merchants applied to the Privy Council for permission to ship, again, gypsies, to the Caribbean to be used as slaves, and for which they were to receive a sum of £13 in payment for doing that. We have a French visitor to the Caribbean in 1666 who was in the West Indian Islands and remarked on numbers of what he called Egyptian wenches, in other words, Romani women, who were bondservants. We know that in Jamaica, and this is rather an interesting quote, it certainly warrants more investigation, but a visitor in Jamaica in 1793 wrote, and I read the whole quote, "I have known many gypsies to be subject from the age of 11 to 30 to the prostitution and lust of overseers, bookkeepers, Negroes, etc., to be taken into keeping by gentlemen who paid exorbitant hire for their use." And that's quite a remarkable quote. We have a court case from Virginia in the United States from 1695, when a Romani woman laid a charge of assault on her person, which was dismissed by the court because, as they said, she being an Egyptian and no Christian woman. There are a few words from our language in the languages, the Creole languages spoken in the West Indies, in the Caribbean, and I mentioned those in the book. Moving on to South America, we have the Portuguese and the Spanish sending their Romani people to Argentina, Brazil, and elsewhere. And these are countries where the population overall exceeds the Romani population in North America. There are many more Romanis in Brazil and Argentina, in Colombia, and in Chile. These countries in particular have very large Romani populations. As in North America, we have an earlier wave of transportees, those from the Iberian Peninsula, from Spain and Portugal, are the Calais Romanis, and they are well represented in Central and South America, including Mexico. They are Calais in Spanish-speaking countries and Calões in Brazil, which is a Portuguese-speaking country. And in the same way, in North America, the earlier transportees and arrivees were from the Romnichal population in Britain, and they are extremely well represented here too. The later wave came following the various events in Europe, particularly in the Balkans. We have the end of slavery in Romania, which brought very many Wallach Romanis to North and South America. And I'll say a bit more about that shortly. And again, well represented throughout North and South America. We also have another population in North America from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, when it was on its last legs, people moving out of that part of Europe, the people, Bashalde, we call Bashalde, musician, Romanis, also Romungre, moving from Central Europe into France, into Britain, and subsequently across to North America. And they are also well represented here. And today we have the post-1990 movement with the collapse of communism and a huge movement across the Atlantic. So let me say now more about the individual populations, and I will start with what I know best, which is North America, Canada, and the United States, and Mexico. The earliest arrivees seem to have disappeared into the population. We have a few references of those people intermarrying with the Native American population, the American Indian population. There's no direct evidence of that. These are reports from the various time periods. We know that the part of the Spanish program, it was called the Solución Americana, to get rid of their Romanis by sending them overseas, brought some to Louisiana when it was a Spanish colony, and those Romani slaves intermarried with the African slaves, and today there is a substantial Afro-Romani population in the Atchafalaya Basin in central Louisiana, and apparently there is also an Afro-Romani population in Cuba, which is the subject of a dissertation that's being undertaken by a Cuban scholar. So it's likely that in the course of time, these populations will lose any of their Romani identity. Certainly the language must have gone by now. And this has also happened with those early transportees who have blended into the white population. But the Romney Chows from the British Isles started to come in considerable numbers in the middle of the 19th century and are found in most of the large urban areas in the United States. They divide broadly into families in the northern states and families in the southern states. They stay to themselves, like all the Romani populations, the different groups. They don't socialize to a very great extent. They will form work arrangements with the Vlach Romanis, and I'll come back to that in a short while. They maintain their language, which is called Romnis, but it is, in fact, a variety of English with very many Romani words in it. So grammatically, linguistically, it's not a dialect of Romani, but a kind of English heavily influenced by Romani. An English speaker certainly does not understand it. Neither does a Romani speaker understand it. But it's very much alive, and it's acquired when the children start to go, when they're old enough to go out and work with the parents, and this is when they start to pick up the language. The religion is, for the most part these days, Pentecostal, what is it called? The born-again Christianity, Pentecostal Christianity. And these are the locations, the churches, where large numbers of Romani Americans get together on a regular basis. Every weekend, every Sunday, you will find many Romanis all in the one place. And this has two aspects to it. There are Romanis who resist this shift to Pentecostalism because it does not allow some of the traditional cultural aspects of Romanipe. For example, Trabarimos, the fortune telling, is forbidden. This is more the case for Vlach, Roma, than the Romanichal Romanis, because for the Vlach, fortune telling is a major source of income. And when that is taken away or forbidden, it affects the family pretty heavily. Also, and this again is for the Vlach Roma, the Vlach refer to themselves as Roma. They also forbid arranged marriages and early teen marriages, and these are integral in the Romania, in the Romani culture. On the other hand, over the years, large gatherings have diminished in number. And it's only now that the churches are providing places, locations for large groups of Romanis to be together on a regular basis. And this is important for many reasons, not least of which is a location to create a school in the church house, in the church hall. And that has been tried in the past, not terribly successfully. The Romanichals' main occupations are paving, blacktopping, which is putting the tarmac on driveways and car parks, roofing, installing lightning conductors on farmhouses. The older professions of trading in horses, that is not seen so much anymore. Times have changed. But the Romanichal population is it's considerable. It's in good shape, and it is growing. One method that Romanichals from Britain managed to come and settle in North America is to come on as a vacationer and come to, let's say, Florida for a holiday with money, which is then put into an American bank account. And on each subsequent visit, more is added until there is a substantial amount of money in an American bank. And it is easier for Romnichals, most Romnichals, not all, to hide the fact that they are Romani. They physically look pretty much like white Europeans. And so their ethnicity is not an issue on coming into this country. And if you have a substantial amount of money here, you can apply for a preference. You won't always get it, but you have a chance of getting a resident status here. I mentioned coming in without revealing one's ethnicity because in the 1880s, the immigration department made it illegal for Romanis from Europe to come into North America. And we have cases of people arriving here, Vlach Roma, following the abolition of slavery, being turned away. At that time, it was very easy to go to South America, to Argentina especially. Argentina was looking for immigrants and did not require passports. And so very many Romanis, mostly Rom, Vlach Rom, were able to come into South America where many stayed. Others made their way up through Central America, through Mexico, into North America. And those people are still remembered. That division of the Vlach in North America are remembered as the Argentinuria because they came from Argentina, from Argentina. Others are Grecura because they came from the Turkey, I guess the Ottoman Empire period, Greek-speaking part of Europe. The Romnichals refer to the Vlach as Turks because, presumably because they came from the Ottoman Empire to North America. The Vlach, on the other hand, refer to the Romnichals as Bayash. They're not Bayash. They are Bayash here, particularly in Mexico, also known as Luda. They are the people, they are Romanis that do not speak our language. They speak Romanian. During slavery time, they were forbidden to speak Romani because they were the house slaves. But they are well represented, especially in Mexico and some families in North America as well, but not so many. The Vlach came here, as I say, following abolition, and the highest period of time for their arrival was between about 1880 and about 1920. But they continue to arrive. They are divided into a number of divisions, if you like, the largest being the Kildarasha. This name, as you surely know, is an occupational name. because the caldera with the big copper bowls that they worked on in Europe and for a long time here as well. And there are one or two skilled Vlach copper workers, but it's a trade that's dying out. The other large population, Vlach population, are the Machwaya. The Machwaya are here and well represented also in South America. Coming from an area, Machwa, in Serbia, and are distinctively different from the Kalderash, although the two dialects that they speak are very, very close. But the difference is that most of the Kalderasha came here not directly from Romania, but via Russia. And they are remembered as Rusulia. Whereas the Machwaya came here, they left Romania to the west, coming into Serbia, and were treated rather differently by the Serbian government, being conscripted into the army, for example, having opportunities for education, which wasn't so much the experience of the Rusulia. And so the Machwaya here regard themselves as being the elite of the Vlach. I'm not sure that that's universally believed, but it's certainly believed by the Machwaya. More recently, we have numbers of Lovara coming into this country, all fairly recent, and there are big populations in Chicago, especially in St. Louis, following the Balkan Wars in the 1990s. A lot of Bosnians were given an opportunity as refugees to come to St. Louis in Missouri. And there were very many Romanis amongst them, amongst the larger Gashkano population. And they came in and lived in a separate neighborhood in St. Louis. There are also Khurkhane, Muslim Romanis, especially in New York. They are business people. They live in the Bronx. They have a couple of mosques. Some of them are engineers. They don't really socialize to a great extent with other Romani groups. I mentioned socializing a short while ago when I was talking about the Ramichels, who do sometimes form short-term work alliances with Vlach. If the Vlach Roma have a large job, they will take the local Ramichels on board as partners on the job, and they will share the profits, and then will go their separate ways afterwards. There are very few Kale Romanis in North America, to my knowledge. There are some, but they are individuals and not communities. The same is true of Sinti Romanis. There are individuals who are Sintis, but there is no neighborhood, no district, to my knowledge, anywhere in the country. There are neighborhoods some places there are restaurants owned by Romani families. But the Americans, the general non-Romani population, is still very much victim to the Hollywood gypsy stereotype. And so while a Romani American family could well be living next door, if they don't look like the Hollywood barefoot dancing, bandana earringed gypsies, they are not recognized as being Romanis, and the family will not tell them that they are Romanis. So this operates against our people to a large extent, because the word gypsy is the word they use, and it is a loaded label. It conjures up an image which is not particularly respectable or serious. It's a behavior. And so when news about gypsy affairs in Europe especially turns up in the press, it isn't taken seriously by the general population. And so we have to try in various ways to educate the population. And one of the things we're doing now, and I see I'm getting close to the end of my time, but I want to tell you about a Zoom conference we had very recently, last month, based in Montreal, for Romani translation. And it was very well attended, and it deals with ways to bring our language, if you like, up to date into the international arena, so that international documents can be translated. United Nations, EU documents can be translated into Romani, which then has to bring up the question of, well, which kind of Romani? There are various recommendations for standardized dialects, but no single one of them has achieved any particular recognition. And it's clear that a kind of general, mostly Vlach-based Romani is emerging thanks to internet. The internet has been a wonderful tool, a global tool for a global people. And having brought up that word, let me finish, since I'm talking about Romanis in the Americas. Please, in Europe, you in Europe listening to me, do remember that we are a global, not just a European people. There are millions of us on this side of the Atlantic. Thank you for listening.